we add another list. We add another name to the list. Oh, man, this is fun. You San Antonio race fans, you're in heaven tonight because we talked to the man, the Bean Bandit, Hubert Bean, Mr. Bean, or Bean, as you like to be called. How we doing, sir?
Just fine, sir. How are you doing?
Oh, man, we are doing well. We are doing well. So, Hubert, man, so what do you do with yourself these days? I mean, I know you still have the family racing and doing their thing, but what the hell does what does the Bean Bandit do these days?
Well, I haven't been doing a whole lot because I'm sure most of the people that are kind of close to me know that my wife got that Alzheimer's about 8 or 10 years ago, and she just died 3 months ago. So, kind of been kind of rough the last few years, you know, but. We actually moved from the San Antonio area down to, we live about 20 miles from Mathis, Texas, and close to the lake down here. And I've got a boat and try to do a little fishing and stuff, but just now kind of getting my head on straight after losing somebody that close to you for, 60 years. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's ever been through it, and we'll all get over it eventually, but it's tough right at first.
Absolutely. But, yes, sir.
And I still got my son and three grandsons that still got cars and still race, but obviously for the past few years I haven't been involved with them too much, but I'd like to try to get started with them. If I've got anything left, I'd like to start helping them again and going to the races and stuff, because we were pretty much homebound there for a few years, with her condition. But
sure.
Anyway, I actually physically, I guess I feel pretty good. I'm 80 years old now, and I still get up and walk around and do my thing.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome to hear.
So, Bean, you were kicking ass in race cars long before my time when I started getting into racing in the mid '80s. So let's talk about how you got started in this business. What was the first memory that you have of racing? Was your family involved in it before you, or are you the patriarch of the whole thing?
No, actually, the family didn't. What really started, it can be a long story, I guess, but you remember Buddy Annis?
Yes, sir.
Your name, Buddy Annis? All right. Well, he was married to a lady named Millie, and she was Millie Berry, and she had two younger brothers that actually lived 2 streets over. Well, the whole family, Berry family, lived 2 streets over, and we all went to school together. And so when Millie was going with Buddy and he was racing, we all were 10 years old, 12 years old. We're piling in the car to go to the old Pan American on Austin Highway to watch him run.
Nice.
And that's what really got my interest in it. But I didn't see building one of those cars and driving it to work Monday morning. So, I actually got into the drag racing when I was 16, and I had a 51 Ford, then a 57 Chevy, and I put a Corvette engine in it with 2 4-barrels and all that. But I still went to the races every Saturday night, and I'd go to the old Double Eagle drag strip and on Sundays and run my drag cars. But I still had an interest. First love. Well, I just kept thinking, boy, I can do that. I used to watch Waldo and Bill White and Buddy Jergens and all the old timers. I guess, hate to say it, but I guess they're all gone now. But watch them race, and one of these days I'm going to do that. And actually, another friend that went to school with, I'm sure the name might be familiar, but the Oatmans.
Harold
we went to school.
Yep.
Yeah, we went to school together, and I knew how to cut and weld at that time, and Harold brought an old 55 over there and asked to help him put a roll cage in it, and I did. And we took it, and I built a 265 2-barrel motor for it. That's what Ricky Ware had for rules. And we took it out there on a Thursday. Ricky let us run it, and, of course, after Harold run it, he said, well, you want to drive it? And I told him, yeah. I went out there and run it about 10 laps and came in, and by the time the next weekend was gone, I done sold every piece of drag equipment I ever had. I just thought I was hooked before, but boy, I was hooked in. I said, man, I got to do this. So that's really how I got started into it. And then we started, building a few cars and trying to run Ricky's track. And then I run at Corpus and, of course, Austin and Midland, Odessa and Altus, Oklahoma. And we wound up running Nashville, Tennessee, and Jackson, Mississippi, and Pensacola, and Phoenix, Arizona. time it was all done, I done a lot of it.
Yeah.
That's really how I got started, was just knowing somebody that was in it, and you always had a mechanical background, I guess, because messing with cars and stuff. But I really started drag racing when I was 16, and I think I run my last round track race probably when I was 52 or so. So that's about 36 years I messed with it. So.
Man, yeah, that it's usually one thing that causes the addiction, and that's and that's what happens. So,
well, I was real lucky because of the wife and the kids.
Mm-hmm,
I got three daughters and my son, and they back me up 100%. You can't do it if your family don't kind of support. Well, I guess you can get a divorce, but
been there.
But your family's got to be with it, and the kids were. Debbie was Miss Pan American for a while. Darla jumped over the wall with aluminum jack and helped me change tires and stuff. So yeah, I had a tremendous amount of help, and I've never really had the opportunity to thank them all, but I do. I can't mention all their names, but through the years, just so many Harry Kinseys and Earl Millers and Drew Williams, and just people that have helped me, and Donald Pogue.
Mm-hmm.
And probably one of the best things that ever happened, I got a guy named J.L. Geist from Abilene come down with a car, and I was selling the fuel and the tires, and they had a big race in Austin.
Yeah. On
a Friday night, we went up there. He stopped by and bought tires and fuel. We went up there and watched him. He had a guy named Danny Patterson running the car, and he looked decent up there. I think they ran fourth or fifth or whatever they run. And but then the next night we ran at Highway 16, and of course we were out there again with the tires and fuel and stuff. And he didn't look like he was getting around there very good. But anyway, JL come over there and told me, he said, "Hey, you want to run my car tonight?" And I told him, I said, "No, you got your driver. Old Danny seemed like a nice kid." I said, "You bring it down here sometime without him." And I said, I'll drive it for you. But I said, "I don't want to get no driver disputes,
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, well," he said, "somebody told me you run second to Freddie firing points." And I said, "Well, I did that." And he said, "Well, you're a race car driver. I want you to drive it." And I said, "No, it's okay." I said, "We'll get together one of these days." Well, few minutes, here comes Danny down there, and he told me, he said, "If you want to run that car, Mr. Bean, you run it." He said, "This track scares me." And I told him, I said, "Well, Danny, you ain't got up in the groove yet. You're just going around the inside. You get up there and get on it. It'll go right around there, He said, "No." He said, "I'm not going to run it." Well, I looked down there, and they're pushing the car up on the trailer.
Yeah.
And so my daughter goes down there and tells me, "Well, if y'all going to go home, my dad will drive the car." So I went ahead and got in the car, and I'm telling you, that car handled like the best handling car that I'd ever driven in my life.
Mm.
And I think we had a driver change, so I had to start 23rd or 24th, and I think we ran 4th or whatever. I mean, that car just goes through the turns.
Yeah.
And so after the race was over, I asked him, "What kind of chassis did you build that?" And he said, "No, it's a Glenn Bopp car."
Of course, yeah, Bopp chassis, yeah, nice.
Yeah, and he said Bopp built that car. And boy, just bells going off in my head. I said, "Man, I gotta do that." Well, that was really the last race at the end of the year. Well, then he called me and asked me if I'd come up to Abilene and run the car. And I told him, well, I'd already promised a guy named John Charles that I'd run his full midget at Houston on the dirt. And I never had run dirt before. I said, "I never drove midgets. I want to go do that." I said, "But I'll get you next time." And he said, "Okay." Well, anyway, a few weeks, he called me back. And of course, now it's gone into October or whatever it is.
Yeah.
He called me, and I took Robert Beardsley and Roger Slaughter up there, and we went up there, and there wasn't no engine in the car. There was a guy in there painting it, no front fenders or anything. And of course, JL wasn't there. We got in there. I said, "Is this the car we supposed to run?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "JL would get over in Temple, Texas, to pick up a motor for it." Oh, okay. So he said for y'all to start putting the seat and stuff back in it. So we've started putting it all back together. And about 6 o'clock that night, JL got there, and we put an engine in there built by Charlie Humphreys.
Wow.
And we put that engine in the car. Well, that was actually Saturday night. Well, they wasn't going to race till Sunday, and the reason they didn't, because that's cowboy country up there,
That's right. That's
Pittsburgh
right.
Steelers were playing the Dallas Cowboys, and they played the early game, so they scheduled a race to like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So we go out to the tracks, asphalt track, a lot like Austin, flatter than a flitter, and got a guardrail around it. You know, reminded me of Austin. So we get out there, and we get out there late, of course, because all the stuff we had to do to the car. They playing the national anthem. I'm putting on my fire suit, so we have to go around and get on the back of the pack. I ain't seen a car go around there. I ain't seen a hot lap. Never been to that racetrack in my life.
Yeah.
Well, we started on the back of the pack, and I didn't have no heat on the tires, no heat on the brake pads. You know, just go off into the first turn.
Yeah.
And it seemed like everybody was immediately trying to get to the inside. Well, I went to the outside because it had no brakes. And, you know, anyway, I passed a couple of cars, and I just went ahead and stayed out there, and I ran the whole race on the outside and won that race.
That's amazing.
And we come into the pits, and old J.O. standing there jumping up and down, hollering, you know, and he was happy, you know, and I told him, I said, what's the deal? And he said, well, I owned this track for 5 years, and that's the first race I ever won. And, you know, he thought I was some kind of hero, and I told him, no, I just went where everybody else didn't. I don't know what to tell you. And we took the car back to his shop, and he told me, I backed it up to the door, and he told me, "Now, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I said, I got to open up my shop tomorrow morning. We got to get out of here. These guys work." He said, "Now, will you take that car with you? It's yours."
Wow.
And I said, "What?" He said, "Yep." He said, "You just call me where you're going to race it." And he said, "I'll meet you there."
Damn.
And that's how I got that first Bop car with a fresh motor in it. I wound up running it for a couple of years, and I sold it to John Torres.
No hell.
Torres.
Yeah, Frank. Yeah.
I sold it to Frank Torres, and then he wound up selling it to Carl Wintrick.
Oh, number 40. Yeah.
And Carl Wintrick ran that same car for a couple of years, won a couple of the 2 world championships in it, I believe.
Yeah.
And that's what really got the Bop chassis, and I'm going to say also professionally built chassis. You know, everything was kind of home built up to that time. And you might buy components from Speedway Engineering, which put it together yourself, you know, or then all of a sudden everybody wanted to have a Dillon car or a Ed Howell car or a Glenn Bop car or a Frankie Grill car. Yeah. And that really kind of made racing tougher, because what you had to figure out on your own at home, all of a sudden you could kind of buy that technology, you know, that was, they told you what, and that's probably one of the biggest helps I had, because I became pretty close friends with Glenn Bop and his wife, Yvonne. Yeah. And I became a Bop dealer, and it turned out real good for me, but it was just a hap circumstance like that got it all started.
Yeah. Clark Avenue Automotive. Know it well.
Clark Avenue Automotive. I had it for 17 years.
That's right. I remember, speaking of the Bop chassis, I remember what Yeoman showed up in Austin, and he had a chassis, and it had a plate in the car. It said this car was specifically built for Slick Yeomans. So that's where all of that was starting to happen. So Bean, let's talk about so Pan American. We'll talk about the transition. I know Lost Speedways did their thing about the whole rivalry there. We'll talk about that later on. As much time as you have, but talk about Pan American. I mean, because that seems to be the one where so many people talk about 16, and it's a great place. I mean, it really was speed plant, but to me, I never had the opportunity to go there. But talk about those days of Pan American. That was really when the shit got real in San Antonio, it seemed like.
Yeah, Pan American was the original one, like I say, was on Austin Highway, but then Ricky Ware got the one going on Top of Wine Road, and I can't remember, maybe Red McCombs helped him or something. I can't remember, but
crazy.
Anyway, he built the one out on Top of Wine Road, and that's when I got started. You know, Jimmy Fingers running, Waldo Harper, and that's when he came out with a class. It was he called it a novice class with a 2-barrel class, and that's what I say. That's what we built. Oatman's first car, and then built one for myself. But he had a rule that you could only run that class 2 years. You either had to move up or quit, and that was his way of getting fresh meat into the bigger classes. So after I ran for a year and a half, I guess, and then we built a 4-barrel car. But the track was pretty flat down the straightaways, but it was banked in the turns, and it really did help you get around there. And I really, to be honest with you, I hate to admit it, but I was always an engine man, a drag guy, so I could make horsepower and make the engines go.
Absolutely.
I really didn't quite understand suspension and how to make it turn left. And when they had a big race at Austin, I said a big race. It was paid extra money, but it was in Austin for the
Aquafest, probably the Aquafest thing.
Yeah, and we went down there, took my car down there and ran it, and I swear to God, running it seemed like I could feel the left rear tire coming off the ground. You talk about loose. I mean, this thing is loose, but it really didn't bother us at Pan American because of the embankment.
Yeah.
In the turns, it was loose, but it wasn't never ridiculous. Well, when I got home that night, I called Buddy Ennis. And I told him what happened, and he said, "Oh my God!" He said, "I can't believe you run that good, and you ain't got no crossways in that car." And I said, "I ain't got no what?"
Right.
He said, "Well, I don't know what you got on the car, but he said I watch you run. You really do a good job." He said, "Whatever you do, go out there and jack it up in the garage and tell me which tire comes off the ground first."
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, okay." So I went and did that, and I went in. I said, "Well, the left rear comes up about 1.5 inches off the slab before the right tire moves." He said, "Oh my God!" He said, "You got it all backwards." And I said, "Well, I guess what I got backwards."
Yeah.
He said, "Take everything off the right rear that you got with springs, shocks, whatever, and put it on the left rear. Whatever you got on it, and put everything on the left rear on the right rear."
Yeah.
I told him, "Okay." So he said, "Call me back." So I called him back. I said, "I got them switched." And he said, "Well, now jack it up." I jacked it up, and he said, "Which tire come off?" I said, "The right rear come up about 1 inch before the left rear." He said, "Adjust it from there, but you got it fixed."
Yeah.
And so we went out there that night, and of course we won, so I had a new track record and all that. And I thought, "Well, I can't believe that."
Yeah. Yeah. Hubert, what's so funny? I was just having this discussion with my dad yesterday. We were talking about this new NASCAR car that they can't figure out. And I was telling my dad, I said, if they could get in there and jack around with the crossweight, this son of a bitch would go right around the corner.
Mm-hmm. I don't think they let them do that.
Oh, I know they can't. Yeah. No, I know they can't.
But anyway, we run at Pan American, and that's the days when Jimmy Finger and Waldo Harper and Buddy Jurgens and, even, Glenn, Clarence Level.
Schwabe.
I mean, there was Bud Simpson. There was a lot of Austin cars in the San Antonio, and they kind of had an agreement that they kind of run the same rules, and you could run Friday nights in Austin and Saturday nights at Pan American, and I thought that was outstanding. Yeah. Because, of course, then I was young, 25 years old. Well, let's run Sunday too,
Yeah, why the hell not? Yeah.
But that was really helped South Texas and helped the racing, and we actually had some good cars and some good drivers. I mean, I hate to say it or sad to say, I guess most of them are gone now, but I mean, there's new crops coming in all the time. But it seemed easier back then to me, but I guess because I was young and everybody just kind of built their own cars, and I kind of knew about mechanics, wheel alignments, and caster and camber, all that registered to me, Mm-hmm. And being a drag guy, and I could make horsepower. Just took me a couple of years to figure out it's supposed to be on the left rear,
That's right. That's right.
But that was really when Ricky got the second try. And then Highway 16. I would like to clear up a couple of things. I know I'm talking too much.
No, please have at it.
I've heard a lot of people after the fact say that Highway 16 was built to put Ricky Ware out of business. And I would like to say that I was one of the original stockholders. I got a lot of money in that track. Yes.
Wow.
And there was probably 20 of us originally, wound up with more. But I have to tell you that I had a lot of respect for Ricky Ware. From my point, it was not built to put him out of business.
Right.
And I never heard another stockholder issue that statement. They never told me that. I never heard them say that. Now, I won't say that some of them didn't have some animosity towards Ricky Ware. Sure. I guess it's possible. But what we were trying to do was get the bigger track, the half-mile track. We wanted organizations like All Pro and some, the drivers like Neil Bonnet or Freddie Fryer. We wanted get big time racing, I guess you want to say.
For sure.
And I hate to say it, but we wanted to cooperate with Ricky and have same thing like Austin and Pan American did, run on different nights. But that just was apparently not negotiable. And he wouldn't do it and we wouldn't do it, or, it just, that almost like Ricky had what I would call captive automobile. You know what I'm saying? His rules, if you built a car according to his rule, you really couldn't run it in Houston Meyerland, which I raced over there a lot too. Yeah. And am I making sense there? You know what I mean?
Totally. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's been the problem with Texas, I think, for so long, is that there was no cooperation there, and that and honestly, Hubert, the thing was, I think with Ricky for so long was that he was the guy. I mean, he had Austin for a while, he had Paramount, whatever they called it, and he had Pan American. I mean, he was a dictator at that point. I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean, he did what he wanted.
Yes, sir. And that's exactly right. And I think I will say, like I said, the track wasn't built to put him out of business, but I think there's a lot of headstrong car owners that didn't like that dictatorship either. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Ricky had problems that it was either his way or no way. And I mean, I know he's not here to defend himself, but we had lots of talks. And, we flew on the airplane together and had to sit beside each other in the plane and have a lot of long talks. So I think I kind of understood him, and I hope he understood me. But, it's just like people used to, and I can see where he's coming from. But, you go out there, I'd go out there and win the feature. You win $250 or whatever it was, and you'd think, man, you look up in the stand when you're sitting down there doing the driver introduction, you look and say, man, it must be 5,000 people. Well, it might have been 500, but in your head, you think,
sure,
5,000 people up there,
absolutely,
man. You need to make some more of this money. Mm-hmm. And some, not myself, but some of them got on Ricky about that. You need to pay more money. And he said, well, we'll pay a percentage of the purse, whatever it is. Mm. Well, once again, you think there's, 2,000, 3,000 people up there in the stands. And then you go out there and win the feature, and then the next Saturday night you get paid, you get $175. Well, that's your 40%. Yeah. Well, you can't go back and say, well, no, man, there was 3,000, and we should have got, at $5 a head or whatever it is and stuff. So all of that trying to fix it just caused more arguments.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I'm saying? He couldn't prove his point, and he couldn't prove our point or the driver's point, not mine particularly. But I think there was a lot of hard feelings about that. But once again, I still want to say we were not trying to put Ricky out of business. We just wanted big time racing and an alternative. And if Ricky could have kept running and had a car that my rules that my car would fit, I'd have been out there racing with him on Friday night, just like I went to Austin. We weren't trying to bankrupt Ricky Ware. And I've heard a lot of people say that, and I can't say that some people didn't feel that way, but it was never translated to me.
Right. Absolutely.
So Hubert, who came up with the design for Highway 16? Was it designed from the beginning to have that big of banks, or were you guys sitting in a room on a napkin? I mean that was a big change from what Pan American was, being small, tight little bull ring. You get to these high banked, high speeds there at San Antonio and Highway 16. How did the design of the racetrack come about?
Well, some of that went into it. First off, some of it was the property that we had. We wanted a half mile.
Yeah.
And you couldn't spread it out all over there and still have parking.
Oh, yeah.
And then if you'll remember right, there was a tank, a natural well spring in the infield, kind of close to the 1 and 2 turn.
Yep.
Which we actually had to put a pump down in there, pump water out of there, if you'll remember. Mm-hmm. I don't know if y'all were into the racing at that time.
I do. I remember a guy going into that tank, Uchinsky.
Yeah,
he went in the tank. Yeah.
Kyle Uchinsky, I think he was.
Yep.
I used to tease him and say, "Oh, he always wanted a telltale tack," and I told him, "You don't need telltale tack. You need a depth finder
and some flippers."
Yeah, you need some sonar or something on that thing.
That's for damn sure.
That's kind of what started, and then Don Beerswell had kind of the idea. He'd been to New Smyrna, and New Smyrna was kind of like that, long straightaways and sharper, higher bank turns, and it wasn't just specifically, hey, this is the way it's going to be. We were kind of limited with the space, but we did want a half mile. Mm-hmm. And I personally think it turned out all right. It was kind of a 2-lane track. I mean, we did pass on the inside mostly. Where at Pan American, you had to pass on the outside.
Yeah.
But it made for some good racing. I mean, the thing that the car would do, you can go running into the number 1 turn at Pan American. I mean, at Highway 16, it'd almost take your breath away. Yes, but all of a sudden, the bankman would catch the right front. You know what I mean? And it's, hey, this ain't so bad. It just go and then get on the gas and come out on the back straightaway, and the right front drops away, and all of a sudden there's light on the left rear, and you best hang on to it again. It was interesting, but. It's just like Austin or Pan American or any racetrack, I suppose. Once you kind of get the hang of it and get your car set up where to go around there, it wasn't that bad. Yeah. It was actually fun.
yeah, scary fun, very scary.
Yeah,
fun.
Yeah, I mean, they go fast. There was a lot of drivers that were fast and still racing that ran at Pan American that never did come race with us. And some of them had told me that extra 20 miles an hour or 30 miles an hour, or whatever it was at the end of the straightaway, they didn't like that.
Yeah.
And, but they were good drivers. Now, some of them that did, Tommy Davis come and run with us, of course. Of course, he was an old dragster pilot, so the speed didn't bother him. And then Kelly, how about John Kelly? He's come out there and did an outstanding job. We used to, good people. I liked him. I drove his car, and I let him drive my car, and you probably don't remember it, but one time he got bit by a copperhead rattlesnake playing around with his air conditioning. And, so he couldn't drive that week, so his brothers come over and asked me if I'd drive their car.
Yeah.
And of course, I snuck over there and put a Chevrolet bow-tie emblem on the trunk.
Absolutely.
And then next week, I seen Robert Kelly and them laughing. I went and looked at my car, and it had a Fomoco oval on the back of my trunk. So, yeah, most of the time, I mean, I realize that they're different, but you have a personality in the pits, and you have another personality when you get in a race car. Does that sound right? I've seen some good buddies in the pits or go out to eat a Mexican plate after the race is over, but boy, when they're on the racetrack, they go orange.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah.
They'll sprint out their own mother if they thought they were going to gain a position.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I mean, that's the way that works. It's funny you mentioned Kelly. So, not to cut you off, Hubert, but I just remembered this. Somewhere in my compound, I have a picture, I think it's probably 84 or something like that, where I think Kelly was in the hunt for the championship. Something happened to the Ford, and you put him in your white number 44. And I remember the program, it said John Kelly, ? In a Chevrolet.
yeah, I let him drive my car. Yeah, he was, I don't know, first or second, or probably leading the points or whatever that was that year. And I can't remember if he crashed or spun out or something. I don't know what it was. Yeah. But I got out of my car and let him drive mine so he could, maintain his deal. And that's what I'm saying. We were friends, but the thing of it is, as racers, and I'm sure you've raced cars, that there's some guys out there that you don't even want to be on the same straightaway with them.
That's right.
And then other guys I'll run side by side with John Kelly or Freddie Fire or something there and just reach out the window and grab the door handle. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They're not going to hurt you on purpose. If anything happens, it's pretty much an accident. Yeah. But there's other guys, like I say, you don't even want to be on the same straightaway. And I'm sure that there's rivalries at every racetrack between different drivers. I've had them. And I won't name any of them because I think most of them are dead and gone, so they're not here to defend themselves, so I'm not going to pick on them. What they say about a pancake, no matter how thin it is, it's got two sides. Well, I'm not going to give you my side of what happened if he's not here to tell you his side. But, it's the racers are mostly for all good. I've had guys loan me engines. Randy Porter gave me an engine when I run the Snowball Derby. Mm-hmm. And he's from North Carolina. And, then I had Calvin Gusson one time. We broke a rear end in Austin. This is a good story. it was Austin running. And he said, "I got a rear end. We want to run Saturday night Pan American." He said, "Follow me home after the races." I said, "Where do you live?" He said, "In North Austin." Yeah. Well, he was lying. He lived in South Waco.
Well, it used to be that way back then. Yeah.
So anyway, we went up there and got the rear end, put it in the car, and ran Saturday night at Pan American. So yeah, there's a bunch of good guys. You know, I loaned Teddy Jones a tire and wheel up in Austin one time, and run about 3 laps, and he spun me out. So running my tire. So
yeah, well, that's about the way that works. Yep.
Yeah. No, I got a million good stories, but you'd have to stay on the air till midnight to hear all the things I got to say.
Well, we can. I might have to go get some more beers, but we'll be fine. Sorry, Bobby.
You tell me when you're done, and I'll shut up.
I jumped on you again, Bobby. Sorry.
So Hubert, you were talking about racing all these different heroes of ours growing up. You talked about racing John Kelly. You talked about racing Waldo Harper, Freddie Fryer, a bunch of other guys. And so who did you consider your biggest competitor growing up or when you started racing? Obviously, you went all over. So you probably had a couple at Pan American, had a couple at Paramount there in Austin. You talked about racing down in Corpus, probably ran into some of the hard castles down there. So who was your biggest? Do you have one guy that sticks out, or was it basically your biggest competitor kind of determined by what track you were running that time?
Well, at Pan American, it was Don Fowler. He ran a Ford 29, number 29.
I remember that one.
Weeks on the car.
Yep.
And, of course, we ran a Chevrolet. And there was – I always had a lot of respect for him. He was good to me. He never, tried to crash you or anything, but he was fast. Mm-hmm. And he was really smooth and cool on the racetrack. And me and him was always high point. I don't know, which is something I wish the tracks would kind of do now. I guess they don't. But Ricky used to have this deal where you run high point average to the back.
Go to the back. Yep.
So, and we had times out there that I'm already off on another subject, but he'd have 45 cars out there and ride them up into 3 heat races.
Yeah. Yep.
And high point man got to start on the back of what they call the fast heat. They run the first 15 cars, the next 15 cars, and the next 15. Well, you're only going to start 30 cars. So in the feature, well, I'd have to start on the back, and you got to go like a son gun to finish ninth, because you're going to finish ninth takes times 3 heats. That's 27 cars.
Yes, sir.
So if you start 15th, and you got to be, 10-lap heat race, you got to go to get up there the ninth. And then after the 27, those 27 cars were decided, then everybody else that didn't make it got to run what's called the last chance race, or the ones that didn't qualify.
The consolation back in the day. Consolation.
Good word. That's probably what he used.
Yes, sir.
And you had to finish first, second, or third out of the also rans, I guess. And then you started 28, 29, and 30th on the back of the feature. And we was always proud of the fact. I only had to run the consolation race one time. We ran about 5 laps in the heat race, and the hood blew up on my 57 Chevy and blocked me out. I couldn't see where I was going, so I dropped out, and then I had to run the consi. But we made it from the consi.
Yeah.
So, Ricky had a lot of competition, good cars, good drivers. But anyway, to get back to your original question, Don Fowler was probably but we were not enemies by any means.
Sure.
But he was hard to beat. He was really, that Ford was fast. And I think maybe his car was owned by, I believe it was E.J. Weeks.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The
E.J. Weeks. And at that time I owned my own car, but I had a guy helping me with the motors named Donald Pogue. Mm. And I think E.J.'s gone, Donald Pogue's gone too, but Pogue was an old drag racer. He had a national record in NHRA for D-gas for many years. And he was a good engine man. Well, he got to helping me with motors, and that really helped me, because then I could concentrate on the car and the suspension, and we'd just build a motor and bring it over, and we'd stick it in the car. Well, I think the Ford versus Chevy was more brought up between EJ and Don than it was, I'm talking about Donald Pogue, than it was between me and Don Fowler. We just got out there and raced and let them sit in the pits and argue about it. But, they even introduced a deal, which I went for it, but they approached Ricky about it. But they wanted to have me and him the only 2 cars on the racetrack. Mm. and we would be running like pace laps, but on opposite sides of the racetrack. In other words, he'd either be a half a lap or half a behind, what do you want to call it? But we'd be on opposite straightaways and trying to maintain a pace. When we got pretty much opposite, have the flag man drop green flag. And then it's all out. And then one of us had to catch up with the other and pass him. Of course, my engine builder said, we're going to eat you up in about 3 laps. I know better than that. But anyway, that was the whole deal. Ricky there would go for it because he said, well, y'all are so equal. He said, we'd be here 3 hours and ain't nobody caught anybody yet.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But all of those little things that kind of fueled the Ford-Chevy rivalry. But I'll be honest with me and Don Feller never had any problems. But he was a good man. A lot older than me at that time. They called him Grandpappy Don Feller. I don't know if you remember.
I think I do recall that. I do recall that.
Yeah, and I was just a little punk kid then, so I wasn't no Grandpappy by any means.
Well, that's the old modern day King of the Hill that they do on the dirt track now, I guess. Is what that would have been. Hubert, I want to ask you, Hubert. Because so you go to 16 and the place opens up. When I got my first dose of Highway 16 Raceway, we went there, and you guys, you had the limited sportsman, and then you guys, the late model sportsman. You had yourself, John Kelly, Charlie Coyne, Leroy Farmer, Slick Yeomans would show up, Freddie. Talk about, man, that was a star-studded deal where you would go to 16 and you guys would get out there, and that was the best damn racing I have ever seen was what y'all did on Saturday nights there at 16.
Oh yeah, we had some. The cars were fast.
Oh, were they? Yeah.
At that time, Freddie was running a Bob car. I actually had a sister car, the one I had. The call over cars. That's what really started to. When, like I say, I had that car I got from J.L. Geist. It was the first Bob car that Carl Winter. It was a Carl spring car all the way around. Well, Glenn called me one year, and he said, "You going to race next year?" I told him, "Well, yeah, of course. Why not?" And he said, "Well, if you're going to run, you're going to have a call over car." And I told him, "What the heck's a call over car?" And he said, "They're so much faster than a regular Carl spring car, you won't believe it." And actually what happened was, I told him, well, I don't know. I said, Frank Torres wants this car. I'll sell it to him. But he said, well, I got the car for you. He said it was built for New Smyrna. I can't remember the guy's name that run the car. He drove the second for old Six Pack. What was the name of that movie? But anyway.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm 80 years old. I can't remember my own name sometimes. But anyway.
I'm right there with you.
He said, you have to have this car and show you that, everybody needs help. Well, John Charles still had that midget that I drove, and he asked me if I'd sell it for him. Then, he'd give me the money to help buy this car. Well, I sent Bob $5,000 to hold the car. It was actually ran in one time in New Smyrna, set a new track record. And they won the feature. And then when they were going back to Atlanta, where these people were from, they got an argument over the driver won the race, and the motor won the race, and the chassis won the race, and they dissolved the team right there, ran the car one time.
Damn.
And it's ridiculous. Well, Glenn got the car back because I told him to sell it. Well, he called me and told me, you need to have this car. And I told him, well, I don't know, I'll try it, I guess. Well, John Charles, I sold that midget for him to Bob York. And be honest, we didn't no kick against John Charles, but he never did live up to his end. He didn't pay for any of the car.
Never fails. Never fails.
It never fails. But John, I'm sorry, Don Beerswald did give me some money. He gave me $5,000 to put on that car too. So anyway, we got the car. And Glenn told me, I don't know what you're running for a motor. Well, I still had the old Charlie Humphrey motor. And he said, whatever y'all are running out there, he said, I guarantee you run this car, you'll run 1 second faster. And I told him, Glenn, you're out of your mind. There ain't no way.
Yeah.
So anyway, me and my son went up there and picked up the car, put my engine in it, and he showed me how to set the chassis up. And that's when we started using all the scales and electronic scales. And this car, which not only were just the coilovers, but see, we didn't have a left side weight rule and stuff at that time.
Oh,
and
wow.
that car was 67.8% left side weight without me sitting in it.
Damn it.
It was like a 70% left side car.
Heavy.
You could, when that
Heavy.
car was set up, Rodney, on sitting on the scales, I could slide under there and spin the right rear spring and the
Holy
weight on it.
shit. Wow.
And what happens to them cars, they actually went through the turns more stable than they did down the straightaway.
I bet. Yeah.
And the problem with the cars, and everybody got in trouble with them, because if they started to spin out, you needed to go ahead and let them go. Because if you corrected it back to the right, it would plant the left side tires, and it's going to flip or straight into the wall.
All the weights in the ass end on the left side.
The weight.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we put my motor in the car, and we went out there on a Thursday night and to run the car. And them other cars would run a 19.1 or 19.2. You know, if you could run a 19.2, you had a good chance of winning the feature.
Yeah.
Well, right off the trailer, we went out there with last year's tires and on a Thursday night, and I run an 18.7 right off the trailer. And, had to change gear ratios twice as over revving the motor. I mean, it went through the turns like you just couldn't believe.
Yeah.
And I guess we ran the car like that one year, and then the track promoters and stuff. Well, you're going to have to go back to 60% left side, and then they finally went to 58%. Yeah. And that really slowed the cars back down again. But that thing was actually a 17-second car when it was first built.
Wow!
But I ran in the 17s with it a couple of times. But I know one night when Terry Labonte come back down and drove, and I can't remember. I think he ran Don Beerswall's car, but that was after he was already running, Cup. Yeah. And he come down and ran, and Freddie was on the outside front row, and Freddie ran a 19.1, and I ran an 18.8, started on the pole. And so those cars, they was just ridiculously fast. But they was actually easy to drive. I know that sounds silly when you're going that fast, but they just were made to make left turns.
Yeah, they were. I mean, that is the way it was done. And our man Tom Taylor checks in and said it was a Billy McGinnis car. Billy McGinnis. That's it. See, there ain't everybody as dumb as I am. I can't remember on my own name. Yeah, Billy McGinnis. I think it had number 11 on it when I got it. Probably so.
Yeah.
Probably so.
And it was my colors, orange and white and all that. And the only thing we did was compound the numbers off of it and put my numbers on it.
Yeah. And, so Hubert, have you seen these new outlaw cars that they're racing these days? Man, they look like y'all's old late model sportsman. Got that big old long nose, that big old wide long ass. Kind of looks old school, doesn't it?
Yes, sir. I haven't. Once again, because of the family problem. But anyway, I haven't been involved. I got 3 grandsons that race and my son, and I really have not helped them for 5 or 6 years, and I feel bad about that because I think all of them, including Damon, my son, could run better if I was there, or at least he tells me that.
Well, but I agree. I agree.
I couldn't put Diane through that. She didn't know what was going on and where she was at, and the noise scared her. She used to drive them.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I remember that.
She run the powder puffs, and she never got beat. You know what I mean? But she just was what that does to your mind. It really messes you up. And I couldn't do that. She was like having a little kid. I couldn't let her walk around in the pit. She'd walk out in front of a car. She didn't understand that there was, anyway, I didn't want to get back into that. But
no.
Now that this is settled the way God wanted it,
sure.
I would like to help the boys again, and I'd like to help Damon again. Now, I have to say I'm already 80 years old, so I probably ain't no help no more. But the technology of bump stops and all the stuff that came in after I was done with it, we used to run cars. A car sat on top of 4 springs, floated around on the springs, and you used the shocks to control that.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, they don't. If we had a tire bottoming out or something, frame bottoming on the axle housing, or the shock's too long and it bottoms out, and you're done.
Yes, sir.
And now they want to run bump stops and
Yeah.
I don't know. I just never have been able to get into that technology. And but I know it works. Obviously, it works because them guys fly, But I just have not been involved for 3 to 5 years, and maybe I can do it again. I'd love to go to the races and sit up in the stands and boo somebody or root for somebody. Or something,
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
You got you got to honor guys. One person I'd like to have a good thought with that people don't realize, but that's Greg Davidson.
Yeah.
And, I raced against him. In fact, it was the last race I won in Austin. I passed him with 2 laps to go, I think.
Love it.
And I think Greg Spring was leading, and I passed Greg on the last lap or something. But what Greg Davison accomplished with his situation is amazing to me.
Yeah.
And I just hope people realize what that man's been through and what he's still doing. I really support what he's done. I think that's amazing.
Yes, sir.
And anyway, yeah, we'd like to race again. If anybody's got $1 million, want to buy an old man a car, well, I'm ready. But it's going to have to be an asphalt car now. I'm one of them prima donna asphalt racers. Dirt's for planting potatoes. I don't do that dirt.
Oh, Hubert, man, no wonder you're one of my heroes. I think the same way. And it's like the dirt people beat me up. It's like, why are you not nicer to me? I'm like, I'm not being mean to you. I'm a pavement guy. I mean, that's what I've always done.
Well, I always thought the asphalt for racing, the dirt for planting potatoes. I mean,
boom.
My boys, grandkids asked me something about the car once in a while. I tell them, well, whatever we did on the asphalt that didn't work, put it on your car. You're on dirt, it probably worked now.
Yeah, they like the dry slick. That's what's so funny to me. It's like, we love a dry slick. I'm like, that's asphalt.
Exactly. I will say that I think, of course, now I got 80 years old, but I think the dirt racers that run dirt for a while, a couple of years, if they went over to asphalt racing, I think they'd be better drivers.
I think so too.
Because when you run an asphalt car and you get going in the turn and this thing's 15 degrees cocked sideways, it's old crap.
Yeah.
And you run dirt and you go in there, this thing ain't turning a 45-degree angle now to go, And I really think that if you're used to all of that out of shape stuff and you get on asphalt and now you are out of shape, you're kind of, sound logical?
I love it.
I just think it would make a better asphalt racer if you did have some of that dirt under you once in a while.
I agree.
Now, I don't recommend it, but
yeah, that's right. That's right.
So, Bean, I got to ask you, I'm one of the ones that probably doesn't know. What's the whole story behind the Bean Bandit? And you had the little logo there with the wheels and the little bandit there. What was the story behind that thing?
Okay, that's a good story, too.
Here we go.
Actually, before I was married and when I had my 51 Ford, I had built an engine for this 51 Ford, and it's a flathead, and I had it. I had a 1/4-inch stroker in it and 190 thousandths overboard and a Clay Smith cam and Schleifer flywheel. And I built 3 two-barrel carburetors. I built this motor. I didn't even own a car. I was like 15 years old.
Yeah.
I put this engine in the closet at home. And I said, one of these days I'm going to find me a car. I'm going to buy and put that motor in. Well, I finally eventually got a 51 Ford Coupe. And I drove it for a month or so, and then I put that engine in. When I started drag racing it. That was my first drag car. And we went to the rodeo, San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo, and there's a guy named, I believe it was Ed Roth. They called him the Crazy Painter or something. And he was doing T-shirts.
Yeah.
And with, what do you call it, airbrush?
Yeah.
Selling T-shirts. And everybody was standing in line, so I went and got in line with him. You got to realize I'm a teenage kid. So I stood in line, went up there, and he said, what do you want on your shirt? And I said, I don't know. I just put something crazy on there. And he said, well, what's your name? And I said, Hubert Bean. And he said, B-E-A-N, Bean? I said, yeah. And he said, you mean like the Bean Bandit? I said, well, okay, I guess. I don't know. And he airbrushed that thing on that shirt. And I think he charged $2 for it, shirt and all, back in them days. And guy, it just stuck. All of a sudden, and I had a lady painted on the side of my 51 Ford. And then when we started running round track cars, it got put on there. And then first thing you know, it was a logo and purses and handbags and T-shirts and everything had the Bean Bandit on it. But it was just really, he did it. And it was just, I don't know, a fluke or just a whim, something at the rodeo one night.
Wow.
I almost have to give him credit for it because I didn't even associate the Bean and the Bandit together, what I mean?
No.
But I guess it was appropriate, and it was kind of a fun cartoon character that he made. Just made it out of his head, and it took him about 10 minutes to paint that. And I've had it ever since. In fact, my son runs it on his car too. So it just came a family tradition, I guess you could kind of say. But it wasn't anything that was really done on purpose or anything. It would just happened that way.
Yep. Always called Damon the Bean Bandit Jr. Kind of one of those things there for you guys. So I mean, talk about it, Hubert. I mean, those days, Mr. Bean, you get out there. I mean, those great Highway 16 San Antonio Speedway days. The late models when they were the real deal. And, of course, you always had the best trophy queen right there for you. And, I mean, not to go back down that road. But, I mean, just recount those days. I mean, those days at 16. Man, I wish we could. I wish we could go back and have those days again.
Diane was a personality, everybody loved her and she loved everybody.
Yep.
And she found no fault in anyone. And she's a beautiful lady.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No, did not mean to do that to you.
But anyway, I'd like to get to racing again. I mean, I don't mean behind the wheel, but I'd like to be involved in some way, shape, or form. I never would want to be a tech official because they chase you around with monkey wrenches.
I figured you would be a great tech inspector.
I probably would, but I'm too old to fight. I had a guy one time. Well, I had a guy one time that come over and asked me. They protested the guy. They thought he was running a roller camshaft, which was illegal. He had to run a flat tap.
Yeah.
And he come over and asked me. He said, he said, I'm not real sure what a roller tap it looks like. Will you come over and look at this car to see if it's legal? And I said, you're protesting that he had a roller tap? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, is he pulling the intake manifold off of it? Yeah. And I said, well, he's legal then.
Yeah.
He said, what do you mean? I said, if he's pulling it down, he's going to pull it all the way out.
He's going to tear it down. Yep.
I'm handed. He ain't going through that much trouble just to show you that he's illegal. I said, he's legal. Or he's going to be pulling the manifold off. He's running the greatest bluff in the world, or he's legal.
Yeah.
One or the other.
That's right.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind being involved in some way, shape, or form, but I really couldn't see it being official, even though.
Yeah, no, I don't recommend that.
It's not much fun on that side of the world either.
And I have to tell you, Mr. Bean, when we finally got started in racing, in 1985. My dad's first fiberglass racing seat that he ever bought for his Nova that was built by Donnie Moore from Austin. We got it from you, Clark Avenue Automotive. We went and got that from you, and he still has that. It's still sitting there. I was talking to him last night. He said, "Be sure and tell Bean I still got that son of a bitch. It's still sitting on a shelf. That old fiberglass seat.
They won't let you run them anymore. But
can't run that anymore.
No, we used to keep it. Clark Avenue. I used to keep that Mission Ice car. You remember him?
Yes, sir.
Kenny Neal, and we used to keep. I even did a little work for Sherry Blakely.
Yeah,
and then Ward Heinrich kept his car there and did some work for Tommy Grimes. Yeah, Tommy Grimes on his car, and Robin McCall. You remember her?
Oh, I love her.
Mary Dollenbach. We had her car over there a couple of times doing the front end and stuff on it. So, yeah, we had a pretty good deal going there. Yeah. Actually, I sold. After I got the Bop dealer, I built and hand in building 18 cars that we sold in South Texas. So Bop was a pretty big deal around here. Of course, he's sorry to say, but he's dead and gone too.
Sure.
But
Shit happens.
And,
Yeah.
It happens.
That's a bad thing.
That's why I count my blessings that I'm still here, and I guess I'm here for some reason. I just got to figure out what the heck it is, what it's for,
Well,
But
no,
I'd like to see which race are you going to be announcing at? I know you do the announcing at the tracks.
I think the next race for me is probably going to be. I'm actually at Waco this weekend. I'm a dirt track guy from time to time, so I have to sit there and try to make that shit entertaining. So, I mean, it's very entertaining, but it's kind of weird for me. I just love doing the pavement stuff, and it's guys like you, Mr. Bean, that put that stuff in our head, and both Bobby and I. I mean, you guys. I mean, what a run! What a run! I mean, the things that you guys did, whether it be Pan American, Austin, Corpus, San Antonio. I mean, I think back to the old days of 16, and it's like, man, to relive those days, it would be so awesome.
Yeah, well, the first 4-barrel race that I ever won, that I put a car together, the first night we ran it, I may have told you we took it to Corpus just to give a shakedown because Corpus opened before Ricky Ware did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I won the race, and old Chief Swinford ran forward.
Yeah.
Well, Chief Swinford ran second to me that night. I remember that.
Wow.
And like I said, I went up to Abilene and won that racetrack, won on that race, first race I'd ever seen, never even seen a car go around there. So I've had some good fortune. We ran at one at Midland, Odessa, and it's just one of the favorite tracks, I guess, of Pensacola. It was really fast. We got the Hard Charger Award up there in the Snowball Derby. That's when I got the motor from Randy Porter.
Yeah,
that's a good motor, boy. That car was fast. We had to start in the back because we changed motor.
Yeah,
and got up in the top 10. So I thought that was good.
Yeah,
and then I like Jackson, Mississippi, but that's another one. Boy, that track was rougher than a corn cob. Had choke holes in it. I'll tell you a quick story. We went up there, and Freddie Fryer, we got up there on a Thursday, and Freddie Fryer was there and right behind us in line. We went in, and they was mowing the racetrack. Now, let me tell you, had a tractor out there with mowing the racetrack.
Yeah.
And one of the guys stopped that guy when he went by the pit gate and said, "When's the last time y'all raced here?" And he said, "Well, we raced last Saturday night." And he said, "Well, you got the fastest growing Johnson grass I ever seen in my life." So, and we went out, there's holes in this track. I mean, it was pathetic. Well, I went out there and went around the track, and I mean, it jerked the steering wheel out of your hand, choke holes and stuff. And I came back in, and I went over and told Freddie, I said, "Man, how do y'all get around?" He hadn't been out. And he said, "Well, Bean," he said, "the first problem is you ain't going fast enough."
Yeah.
I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "If you go fast enough, you go right over them bumps. You don't feed them." And I told him, I said, "Well, you go out there and do it." And I said, "Show me, and then I'll do it." And he told me, he said, "Well, what you need to do, the two things you need to do, whatever can fall off your car, you need to drill it, safety wire it, because if it can fall off, it will fall off."
Yeah.
And he said, "The next thing is just put, I don't know what springs you got in it or whatever." And he said, "I know you know what you're doing, but just put the softest springs you brought with you in it." He said, "You won't feel them bumps."
Yeah.
And I told him, "Okay, I'm going to watch it." He went out there like a rocket, and you could see the tires moving up in the fender well, but his head wasn't bouncing.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? The car was smooth. The tires were going crazy in the fender openings.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that guy gave me some good advice. We put soft shocks and springs on it, went out there and went around. I didn't ever felt another bump the rest of the night.
Yeah. Old school package.
But, it's just, all of that was fun, and it's nothing but memories now. And if I wish I could do it all over again, and if I hadn't done it, I'd be a millionaire. But since I did, I'm broke.
Yeah, well, it happens. It happens. I mean, that's the thing. We have all the memories, and that's what's so cool about having you on here, Mr. Bean, that you recount those memories, and it's so good to hear all of that. But I have to ask you, lastly, so people always talk about the speed at 16, San Antonio Speedway, whatever you want to call it. I learned the hard way. You never realize how fast you were going till that son of a bitch abruptly stops when you stick it in the fence. Talk about that place ate up the cars.
Mm-hmm. Well, to me, actually, when the bop cars and the call-over cars, they started coming in, they called them throwaway cars. Because if you bop the fence,
you done.
You got to have a front stub. You know what I mean? And the components, aluminum A-frames and all that stuff on there, they, just rubbing tires. Sometimes you'd bend stuff up. But
that's right.
again, the speed, I don't know if because I ran drag cars and ran so fast or whether the speed never really concerned me. And you don't really notice speed. First time I ran at Texas World Speedway, I went out there by myself. You know, you think man, run 180 miles an hour, and you see the ground passing, the fence going by, and you think you're flying. But after about 2 laps, you think, boy, this ain't got no horsepower. You know?
Yeah.
How come I ain't going? And it's the same thing. Like if you're time trialing at Highway 16, you see the ground passing and the fence going by, and you think, man, I'm getting it. But when you get out there and you got John Kelly on one side and Freddie Fryer on the other side, and we're all going the same speed, you ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
You follow what I'm getting at? It's just a sensation that you have, but you can lose it just by everybody traveling together. You know what I mean? It's fun. You just can't imagine. Well, no, so you can't imagine. I guess you can.
Yeah.
But it's a blast. It really is.
I'm glad you mentioned TWS. Lastly, again, wasn't that so fun? I mean, the racing was great. You got to do all that stuff, but man, what a party. You get out there and man, that was where all of us regular people got to go be stars, or you guys did. I mean, out at the old big track.
Yeah, the only thing I never did, all of my guys wanted to go because, like you say, the party and all that. And there were certain rule changes that we had to do. But I really never tried to set my car up to do the right-hand turns.
Yeah, the road course.
You know what I'm saying? I kind of just left it like it was, or ran it with left hand, because they actually were, 4 or 5 left and only 2 right-hand turns.
Yeah, the horseshoes,
Yeah, so I always figure, well, I'll do what I can in left, and I'll just hold on in the left-hand turn, on the right-hand turn, and the car will be fast.
Yeah.
I never did really, and I think the best we ever ran was 7th or something, you know. Yeah. One time I let Freddie run the car up there. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember that, but Freddie ran it up there, and of course we had a driver change, so he started in the back, and I think by the time he got to the first turn, he was 7th or something, you know. Yeah. Anyway, he was, I think, there was a guy who used to come down that was a regular road racer.
Tommy Riggins probably was a guy.
Yeah, he come down. He was leading it. But anyway, I think Freddie got up to like 3rd or 4th, and the hood blew off of it.
No, hell.
And, hood pins vibrated out or came off. So, and he felt bad. And then he come and told me, he said, man, who built that motors in that car? And I said, I did. He said, oh, well, it's not really a 9-to-1 then like you claim. I said, no, it's 9-to-1. He said, man, I got to get you to build my motors.
Oh, love it.
He said, this thing is fast. And I told him, that's a real honest 9-to-1. It passed that and everything. And I said, pull the heads off. It'll CC out at 9.5 to 1. That's what we're allowed.
Love it.
So, anyway, that was a good time. Good
days.
It was just like you said, it was a happening, and everybody went up there and had fun. And after races, we'd stop at the seafood place and eat some lobsters as long as somebody else paid for it.
Yeah, for sure. I thought that you were going to say that you always wanted to go to the wet T-shirt contest on Saturday night. I thought that's what you were going to say, but
maybe I've interference.
Yeah, you did have some great interference on that thing right there.
I had some interference that kind of frowned on that a little bit. So
yeah, you're better off.
It's hard to see it. It's hard to see it from quarter mile away unless you got some real good binoculars.
Well, some people did. Some people did. Yeah. Great stuff, Mr. Bean. This has been, oh my God.
Would you do me one favor though?
I will do whatever you want me to do, sir.
Well, about 4 or 5 times I've heard you say Mr. Bean. Then I am not Mr. Bean. I'm just plain old Bean, okay?
You got it, Bean. Well, I know. I know it. But that's.
Well, I tell you the truth, I think my wife never knew. I think we were married almost 2 years before she knew my first name. I was always, hey, where's Bean? Oh, there he is.
There he is. No, I love it. Good stuff, Bean. Thank you for jumping on with us, man. We got to do this again. I think there's probably more stories that we didn't quite get to jump into.
I can tell you stories about me and Ricky Ware and me and Neil Upchurch and me and, oh, man.
Part 2.
Maybe may not be suitable for radio or TV.
No. We can do whatever. I would love that Neil and Ricky thing, because it's so funny when we lost Neil, we had a lot of people that, they were like, man, I'm so sad that we lost him, but he sure was an asshole. So.
Well, I won't get into them now, but you get me on here again. I'll tell you what happened between me and Neil and Ricky. Like I say, good people. They did a good job at what they did, but maybe I just kind of didn't like the way they went about it.
Yeah, I totally get it. I get that a lot. Yeah, we will do it again. Part 2 to come with the Bean Bandit. Super good stuff.
All right.
Bean,
I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Thanks for taking the time. It's so much appreciated. I'll check in with you kind of off the record here after this.
Well, I think you did more for me being able to talk. I'm by myself now, so
Yes,
it was more beneficial to me than it was to you, I'll bet you.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
That's what it's all about, sir. Thank you.
All right. All right. Thank you, sir.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
You bet. It's damn good stuff.
That was good. I can only imagine the stories about Ricky Ware and Neil Upchurch, and I imagine he's got some more. Imagine he's got some good Freddie Fryer stories too, being that they're running around in the same kind of car manufacturer there. So
I never thought about Neil. I didn't really.